La hora, it's time to start. It is the top of the hour, so we're recording, right, Chris? Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Night Matters this December. Thank you so much for joining us from all around the world. It's been amazing to see everybody pop in the chat with where they're calling in from. If you have not done so, please let us know where you are. We love to see where people are tuning in from. So a couple housekeeping things. Please know that we do have translated captions available. There is a button somewhere on your Zoom toolbar, has two C's in a box, and you can click it and it will translate to your preferred language. So we have that, and there's also just general captions available even if you don't need translation. We do have a feature here for chat. Please put your questions into the chat box, and I will ask them to Stephanie at the end of the presentation. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think that should be it. If you have any questions, there are Dark Sky representatives here as well, so please put your questions in the chat. Chris and Natasha and Callie and I are all here to help you out. If you have any questions, you can also send us a direct message as well. So some other updates from Dark Sky. We are really excited that it's annual report season. So if you are an advocate, a delegate, a chapter, we want to hear from you. We want to celebrate your work and look at all the cool things you've done throughout the year. So I just popped a link in the chat. Please fill it out and let us know, what you've done and what you'd like to see more of from Dark Sky. It's also International Dark Sky Report annual report season. So if you are an IDSP, please be sure to be staying on top of your annual reports because that will keep your certification current. In January, we are starting our International Dark Sky Week preparations, and a huge part of that is proclamations. So if you're not aware, every year we do a proclamation campaign where we work with people all over the world to get proclamations celebrating and supporting International Dark Sky Week. To learn more, we have a whole blog about Dark Sky Week and the Proclamations Initiative, and sometimes it's called a ceremonial document or a resolution, but basically it's just a formalized piece of paper from a decision maker government agency that says we support Dark Sky Week. It's not binding in any way, but it's a great first step towards making progress to get to know your decision makers and a first step towards potentially having a lighting ordinance or other dark sky policy enacted. So please take a note of that. And our January Advocate Action meeting will be all about this particular proclamation initiative. We'll be hearing from Carol Redford in Western Australia and Eileen Craigie in Virginia, who have both gotten probably in the last couple of years over 50 proclamations total. So they know what they're talking about. And it is end of the year, and we are asking if anyone has the means or the funds. We are running our end of year campaign. I've popped that link in there. If you can give, please do. We run entirely off of donations, so thank you in advance if you are able to support Dark Sky. We couldn't do it without you. All right, I think that is all I have in terms of news and updates from Dark Sky. So let's get to the main event. We're really, really excited to have Stephanie Vermillion here today with us. Stephanie Vermillion is a Cleveland-based adventure travel journalist. What a cool job! Who writes frequently about the night sky, and we're so glad that she does. She writes about Dark Sky's work, protecting the world's nightscapes for everywhere from Time to Outside Magazine. And she is also an author of the new National Geographic book, 100 Nights of a Lifetime. It is awesome, which serves as a guidebook to the world at night, brought to life by National Geographic's signature and beautiful imagery. In this book and across her work, Stephanie spotlights responsible and sustainable travel options, as well as experiences that elicit awe for our planet. She'll cover on many of these topics and examples in today's presentation. And I will pop her Instagram and her website in the chat as well. Please give her a follow and support her work. We're so happy to have her here today. And if you're a member, you'll be getting the Nightscape magazine, which includes an in-depth conversation with Stephanie as well, and more information about how you can be involved with night sky tourism. So with that, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And yeah.
Awesome. So I'm gonna do the awkward thing where I'm like, how do I share my screen? I'll figure it out. This is why we practiced yesterday, Betty Maya. And let's see, we are sharing. Okay, so let me get my slide in.
It looks beautiful.
Yes, I did it.
Nice work.
Telling Betty Maya, I was worried I was gonna be that person who goes viral for like putting an accidental cat face on themselves while trying to give a presentation. So we're not there yet. Um, First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of Dark Sky. I've worked with Dark Sky for quite a while as a journalist, and I feel like this book is really the culmination of a lot of stargazing love, astrotourism love that Dark Sky has really helped me stoke. And I know Betty Maya did a wonderful job already explaining what I do, but I thought I would just give a quick overview again, and kind of take you through how I got started in this dark sky world. And I will say I have a note here that says to speak slowly. So I will try to talk as slowly as I can because I'm so excited that the transcription option is available. So slow is good. So as Betty Maya mentioned, I'm a travel journalist for publications like Travel and Leisure, Afar, National Geographic, and I'm also the author of the new book, 100 Nights of a Lifetime, which is up on my bookshelf. I'm running out of copies, so I don't have one next to me because I've been giving them to so many people. And the book covers all sorts of after dark adventures. Um, but how I got here. So I would say that my first kind of fascination with the night sky stemmed from a trip that I was able to take during college to Morocco. So in college, I had the chance to spend 1 month in Morocco, and as part of that, I got to sleep in the Sahara Desert for just one night. But in a way, I would say that night kind of changed my life. When I was out there, and for anyone backing up who knows, the Sahara Desert is very, very, very remote. And I grew up in a mid-sized, light polluted city in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, for anyone who's familiar. And I guess we had the capability to see a couple planets when it was good outside, maybe the moon, of course. But out there under the stars in the sand of the Sahara Desert, I saw for the first time what the Milky Way looked like. I didn't even know you could see that growing up. I saw what I later learned in the astronomy class that I ran home to, the following semester. I saw all of these shooting stars that I learned was a meteor shower. And so that first experience of seeing the world, the night sky without light pollution, really just started this love for all things after dark. And I think that is such a tribute to all of the work that you all do because every place that you turn into, a dark sky park, every chance you give, a college student, a kid to see the Milky Way, it can lead to something like this book. And I'm sorry in advance for my dog who, like I said earlier, might snore. I'm trying to keep him from snoring. Um, Anyways, that first experience with the Milky Way with Morocco then kind of grew into what else is there? And then I learned about the Northern Lights, and my sleep schedule has never been the same. I love the aurora so, so much. Anyone who's traveled with me to see the lights can attest to this. I will stay up all night, every night, if aurora is involved. And what's cool about the Northern Lights for me too is I really started to gain my expertise and my astrotourism writing, um, I guess, bylines as I was Northern Lights hunting. So I started to become a travel journalist on the side of my job in 2016, went full time in 2018, and I also started chasing the Northern Lights in 2016 successfully in 2019, but I tried really hard up until then. And so those two things kind of really worked in tandem and helped me get more and more opportunities to write about something I loved so deeply. And that's kind of how my career took off. I got all of these opportunities to write about the Northern Lights, to write about, hey, solar maximum's coming, listen up, everyone. And yeah, I just credit a lot of my writing success to the aurora, which makes total sense because I'm obsessed. And I would say too that this, similar to my first stargazing experience in Morocco, which opened my eyes to what else is there in the night sky, this opened my eyes to, well, what else is there at night? And it turns out a lot. There's so many things after dark that the world has available to those who will stay up late, rise early, not sleep at all, which is me, like I said, every time the aurora comes out. And it's really cool to see just how many other adventures there are at night for people with all sorts of interests. And that's kind of how this book came about. I saw this interest in astrotourism, saw that there were all of these other kind of adventures. My editor at National Geographic, who I proposed the book to, said, well, let's talk about the manta ray snorkeling you can do in Hawaii at night as well. Let's talk about Volcanoes National Park. So all of this kind of came to a head with this book, and it sent me on a journey staying up super late again. I feel like everyone who travels with me, they think it'll be really fun and exciting, and then they learn that they will never sleep ever. And it's worth it, in my opinion. Stars over sleep, right? So, writing this book, I was able to experience close to 50% of all of the experiences in the book. So, for those who can do math, which I can do this one, is 50 or so of these experiences. And for those I did experience and those I didn't, I always talk to local community experts, local community guides. I think that the people of a destination are the ones who should lead tourism and should be telling the story. So I kind of see myself through this book as a conduit. And that's kind of how, just for background on how this book came about. And writing and researching this book sent me on so many wonderful adventures. Again, not just Northern Lights hunting, but of course, Northern Lights hunting, and not just stargazing, but also taking a twilight safari in Brazil and then doing a similar twilight safari in East Africa, going with indigenous conservationists to learn about sea turtle conservation on the shores of this far-flung beach in Panama beneath the moonlight, sleeping on the Grand Canyon floor, which is me looking super cool in this middle photo, and so many other experiences. And in addition to the culmination of this being my book, I also was able to learn a lot about the world at night. And one thing I think that is super exciting about the world at night is that under the cover of darkness, it can make a destination that we even know so well feel like a totally different place. And I think what's exciting about this new trend, I guess, of nighttime tourism, which, as I have the slide here, is called noctourism. The travel industry loves to take nocturnal tourism, put it together. The travel industry just loves all these like cool, kitschy names. But it's been cool because noctourism was named by Booking.com as the number one or one of the number one slots for the most anticipated travel trends for 2025. So it's almost like, and I was talking to Betty Maya about this yesterday, it's almost like noctourism is astrotourism 2.0. There's stargazing, of course. No one will lose interest in that. And if they do, well, they haven't been to a dark sky park. But there's stargazing, there's northern lights, which, all eyes have been on that this year with the eclipse in America, with northern lights showing up in places that people didn't know they could show up. So astrotourism is booming. But what's cool is that we're also entering this kind of new era of night adventures, of noctourism. And what I think is most exciting about that is one, like I mentioned, it really presents this new opportunity to see destinations we love in a totally new light, moonlight, I guess. And it also presents a lot of opportunity for responsible and sustainable travel. I have experienced that, with all of the pictures on this page and many of the experiences in the book, that nighttime adventure, it really lends itself to quality travel that can benefit communities, that can help the planet, and of course can help protect the night sky. And that's what I'm hoping to talk about in this presentation with, a couple of experiences as examples. And then I'm super excited at the end to open it up to all of you to share your thoughts, your ideas, because I just think we have so many brilliant minds on this call. And I think as travel picks up and people are looking for new ways to travel, how to go deeper or further, I think that the night presents such a great opportunity. You don't have to go to, say, Antarctica to experience the wildest adventure ever. Sometimes it's all about just going out after dark. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for noctourism to do good for the world of travel. And yeah, I'm excited to share some ideas that maybe will spark something for you or send you on a really cool adventure, because I think that's also the fun of all of this, right? Travel is great. So we will start with Canoeing by Night in the Amazon, which is a section of the book I was lucky enough to experience in the Ecuadorian portion of the Amazon. And a quick overview, and I won't give you the full overview of the Amazon rainforest because one, I'm probably not the person to do that, but two, that would be a whole 100 other presentations. But for the purposes of this, the Amazon rainforest is massive, the lungs of the earth, spread over, I believe, 8 countries. And like I said, I experienced it in Ecuador, but there's many places and ways to experience it and to do so sustainably. And the lodge I stayed at in Ecuador, it's called Sasha Lodge. They do a lot of citizen science, a lot of um, sustainable travel, low impact stuff. And they, like many other Amazon lodges, also do a ton by night, which of course I was like, yes, this is my place. So I took my husband to this wonderful research trip. Yeah, life is really hard as a travel journalist, right? So this trip, which was actually for work, but it was pretty fun too. We got to do several of the experiences of seeing the Amazon by night. So night canoeing is one where you're going out on this inky water and you're looking for caiman and glowworms and watching the stars reflect off of the water and listening to just this cacophony of the forest. And similarly, sorry, by hiking at night, you kind of get to feel this, I don't know, you feel like this intrepid explorer who's going through this dark jungle. And we probably went, just like 20 minutes from our accommodation, but it felt like we were in the middle of this jungle. And so it's such a special example of experiencing the world by night, how just a little bit of darkness can make anything feel even more adventurous. And something that I found really awesome about this is that the Amazon has so many nocturnal animals. So it really lends itself to nighttime adventures. But what I found as a lesson here, or an opportunity, is that it also showed me that travel does not have to be about seeing. It's, of course, we love to see when we travel. It's such a visual part of our nature. We love to go and, see the Eiffel Tower, see wildlife on safari. But one thing I have noticed going on safari and being very lucky to go on safari in Africa, for example, in Tanzania, is there's this obsession almost in safari travel with what did you see? You go to the lodge at the end of a day out on, safari, and everyone's sharing what they saw. Did you see the big five? Did you see? And that's great. I do it too. I get it. But I also noticed that one kind of it puts this pressure on you, the traveler, to see everything. And then it kind of makes it feel a little competitive, which then puts this pressure on your guide and driver to make sure you see everything, which then those who lose the most are, of course, the animals, because all of these cars are surrounding these wildlife who just want to live in peace. And a really important example of this I've seen recently in the past couple of years is the wildebeest migration in Tanzania, where about 1.5 million, I believe, give or take, wildebeest travel following the rains from Tanzania across the Mara River and up into Kenya. And a lot of people have on their bucket list to see the wildebeest cross over the Mara into Tanzania. And it's amazing. And again, me having been, I'm also part of the problem. So I'm not saying I'm great at all. I'm just trying to open the dialogue for, opportunities for better travel. But it has created almost like a parking lot at the Mara River now where people are just angling to see and drivers are moving around and it's multiple cars deep to where the wildebeest now, scientists are saying, have started to potentially, change their migration patterns to avoid all of this. So it's a big issue, but one thing that felt just so exciting in the Amazon when I was there was this idea that it's not all about seeing. We saw some stuff and it was great, but it really was about the chorus of the place, the listening, and especially at night when you can't see as well anyways, it's like your ears, your listening is heightened. And so I was listening to howler monkeys who have these whooshing calls that can travel 3 miles, I think it is. I was listening to the cicadas who kind of my biologist guide at Sasha Lodge, he said they're kind of like the changing of the guard signal that it's time for the night crew to come out. You're listening to nocturnal birds and bats and just frogs. And it's this wonderful chorus that just really takes the pressure off of feeling like you have to see everything. And it kind of just makes it fun to experience a destination in a different way through hearing. And I included a few other examples of this in my book, including wolf safaris in Sweden, where you listen to the wolves howling instead of going out to try to see them. And it's just such a wonderful way to remember that perhaps, all of our senses can be engaged when we're traveling. Of course, if we're all, lucky to have all of our senses, I want to be cognizant of that. But yeah, I just like this idea that, there's more to travel than everything you can just photograph and tell everyone you saw. And we're going from the warm and tropical Amazon up to a very cold but beautiful place, Greenland. And the focus here is camping on the Greenland ice sheet, which is something you can do as a traveler. And I got the chance to do it. But before I dive into that, a quick overview of the Greenland ice sheet, which again could be its whole other presentation. But for scale, Greenland is about 20 times the size of Iceland. 80%, give or take, of Greenland is covered by the world's second largest ice sheet. It's a patchwork of crevasses and moulins, which are these deep shafts in the ice, these undulating snow mountains, these ridges. It's just, I mean, flying over it is one of the most beautiful things to ever, in my opinion, see from an airplane, other than the aurora, which I have not been lucky enough to have happen yet, but that'll be future me. Fingers crossed. But anyways, yeah, this is the most beautiful sight from an airplane, and then being among it is just like, wow, Earth is so, so freaking cool. And to kind of explain my love for Greenland, I first traveled here in 2019 by expedition cruise ship. And when I came here, I remember I almost had this like visceral pain when I stepped out onto Greenland for the first time, knowing that in 2 to 3 hours I'd have to be back on the boat. I wanted more. I just felt this draw, this connection to this beautiful land, to these beautiful culture. And I swore then that I would get back. Then COVID happened, et cetera, et cetera. We know how that all went. But in October 2022, I had the chance to come back and I had the even cooler chance to camp on the Greenland ice sheet. So that, to be very clear, is not glamping, with a nice stove and all of, these amenities. No, you are, wait for it, carrying all of your gear out onto the ice. You are potentially in a snowstorm, like I lucked into, where all of my dreams of this aurora borealis over the world's second largest ice sheet. We're crushed. We could barely see like, in front of us. But I'm a big fan of misadventure. So this is the story, honestly, of all of the wonderful trips I've had. I love telling the one where I almost froze my face off on the Greenland ice sheet. And I also think, this is such a good example of how noctourism, night adventures, astrotourism, all of it, lends itself to longer stays. And longer stays are such an important part of responsible travel, of travel that's equitable, that benefits a community. Like I said, when I went by cruise ship, I was only able to go to Greenland for a couple of hours here, a couple of hours there, and I spent as much as I could. But when you're staying there, and I know this is a huge pillar of the dark sky movement from the work I've done reporting on it, but you spend in the hostels where I stayed that are owned by local people. You spend in the restaurants, you hire local guides because you should not, and like, please do not go on the Greenland ice sheet by yourself. And so I think it's such a good example of the potential and the importance of nighttime adventures is it encourages staying longer. For this trip, I stayed before the ice camp or the ice sheet camping trip. I stayed multiple days after. And I think that just shows if we're night adventuring, how much more we can give to a community. And also for the traveler, I think more and more people, we had that big boom post COVID of everyone jet setting, and I forget the travel term for it, but it was something about like, I don't know. And I can't remember, but it was something about how everyone's just coming back with a vengeance almost, which is a weird way to think about travel. But people were just like knocking off their bucket lists. But now I think people are looking for deeper. They're looking for more immersion. And again, that's where noctourism and these kind of adventures where you're really in it. You're sleeping potentially in the snow. You might be jumping in the lakes of the Greenland ice sheet, which I did not. They were basically frozen over, but I was told people do that. And you just feel a place more deeply. And I think that that's what people are looking for. And again, that's where astrotourism and noctourism just really can kind of inspire these longer stays that are better for communities. And because, we're too cold now after that snowy adventure in Greenland, we're going to hop back down to a warm place that is so dear to my heart, Panama. And here I want to talk about a really cool conservation and community tourism project that I got to experience firsthand in 2023, I believe. So last year or 22. It all runs together. But there's this really cool movement in Panama. It's a project called the SOSTER Network, SOSTUR Network. And it basically is the government and their tourism board, they're working with 10 pilot communities throughout Panama. And these are rural and indigenous communities. And they're helping these communities who've opted in, they want this. They're helping them build infrastructure and tourism opportunities and websites to help travelers get out to reach them. And these are communities that, for example, when I visited, it requires a boat after your tiny plane ride, then requires a boat ride to a hike to a boat ride to a smaller boat ride to get to where you're going. So the whole network, the project is making these places more accessible to bring income that is needed to these destinations, which also is then helping to safeguard local species, local cultures, local ecosystems. And one great example of that is in my book is the turtle arrabata. And this is known as the arrival of the turtles. And it's this really spectacular phenomenon of the natural world that occurs on, I believe, 11 shorelines in the world that are known. There could be more. But basically, from July to November, once a month, hundreds to thousands of these turtles in these destinations come ashore beneath the moonlight simultaneously. and nest all at once. And they're nesting over 100 eggs roughly per turtle. And the guide I talked to, who's local in Panama, on one of these beaches, said that sometimes you're stepping, you can't even avoid the turtles. There's so many. And what's really cool is the SOSTER network and the Arabada kind of come together for this experience that shows the conservation and community tourism potential of nighttime travel. So in Panama and in so many places around the world, for a long time, people have hunted turtles for their meat, for their shells. This is everywhere. But in recent decades, people, especially, these rural communities and indigenous communities, they've recognized, hey, something's off. This isn't working. And so a lot of places I've seen have these kind of community grassroots projects that have come about where they recognize they're so in tune with nature. They recognize, hey, this isn't working. Let's try something new. And there's been a lot of conversation about curbing the habits of hunting and poaching and trying instead to maybe protect them through different measures. And in Panama, on this beach in this area called Isla Cañas, you have the SOSTER network has community guides there who are taking travelers who get out there. They're taking travelers out to see this Arabada in this protected area that the community is protecting. And now travelers can kind of, through their tourism dollar, really bring income to the community to show, as the guide I talked to said, that a turtle is more valuable alive than dead. And it's really exciting. This is from my experience in one of the destinations on the SOSTER network. But it's really exciting because it's done a lot of good already for the turtle populations. It's inspired a lot of conversation locally about protecting the turtles. And what's really cool is that the wagons that were once used to bring to go out and to hunt the turtles are now being used to bring travelers out to see the turtles, to see them at night with these local guides who are working around the clock to protect them. So it's just an example, one, of a really great project in a place that I love so much, Panama. Um, but I think it also, on a larger scale, shows the opportunity that noctourism and again, astrotourism has to support community guides. As I said in the beginning, I think that community guides, local experts, the people of a place should be the one creating the tourism and spreading the tourism. Not to say they're the only ones, but when someone perhaps comes in from the outside, they benefit a lot from working with the local people. And I think noctourism, night adventures really lend themselves to kind of supporting community guides because we need to have people on the ground who know what they're doing, who know the local wildlife, who know how to be safe, who know the trails. It's so important to have those local people leading these tours. And also, in a way, it just kind of, for the traveler, creates a better experience. I'll give a quick story. When I was in Greenland, like I said, I went once and then I kept going back. But when I was in Greenland last year, I hired a local female guide because I wanted to meet more local people. And I love the idea of female-owned businesses, especially in the world of adventure. And I had this great meal with this guide, Lena, but it felt more like an interview. It was a little more formal. And then we went up to this hilltop to start watching for the Northern Lights. And it's like under the darkness, something changes. You feel like a kid again. It's like more playful. So we went from this formal dinner to being up on this hilltop where I was learning about how whistling is viewed as scary beneath the Northern Lights because in Greenlandic culture, they believe that the Northern Lights will swoop down and get you. And so Lena and I were daring each other to whistle at the Northern Lights. And I'm telling you this because I think it shows with night adventures under the cover of darkness that it just becomes so fun and kind of lighthearted and it feels adventurous and a little spooky. And perhaps it's because we can't see as well. we don't think people are judging us as much. We kind of let our hair down and we're ourselves. And I think when people are traveling these days, they don't just want to see the place, they want to meet the people. And what better way to meet the people than having a community guide who you're out under moonlight with and just, kind of getting to know through this wonderful world at night. And so I think that nighttime adventuring, again, just supports community guides, but it also enhances, through that, it enhances the experience for the traveler. And I know we have some Minnesota people on this call, so yeah, I'm from Cleveland, so I can consider myself a Great Lakeser, but do you say Great Laker? Lakeser? Anyways, um, but when I think of recommending places for the Northern Lights, I more so in this section of the book am talking about Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and northern Michigan. In the lower 48 states, these are kind of the best places for catching the northern lights at lower latitudes because of the tilt of the earth. It really favors this region. There's, of course, other places you can see it, but it favors the region, and I'm from the region, so I had to include it. And one thing that I've learned with my many Great Lakes adventures is how so much of the experience centers around summertime. And it's really cool in the Great Lakes because during the summer, you can see the northern lights still because we still get darkness. So you can basically northern lights hunt wearing a t-shirt and shorts, which I have done many times. But what's really exciting, and again, going to that kind of sustainable, responsible travel opportunity, is that it also can spread tourism into new seasons. So I was just up in northern Minnesota for a conference last week, and I learned a lot about how they sometimes struggle with seasonality of tourism, and that because of weather, it gets cold. Last week was -9 Fahrenheit, so it was cold. But if you're dressed for it, who cares, right? And it kind of the Northern Lights season, which it is best around, spring and fall, and then winter if you're lucky with good weather. It kind of spreads out that concentration of tourism in the summer. So in places like northern Minnesota, the Keweenaw Peninsula, which is one of my favorite places, a lot of the travel happens in the summer to the point that many of these destinations don't even promote summer travel because it almost becomes unbearable for communities. And that's where I think it's really exciting to think about using dark skies, using nighttime adventures, if they're relevant, to bring people there in times where it's not so crowded, where the community wants you. I mean, as a traveler, you can really feel when the community is like, ugh, another traveler, or when they're like, yes, we needed business, thank you. And it's really fun to be on the ladder of that. And that's where, again, nighttime adventures can really do a lot of good because it brings people here in peak aurora season, which, again, I said, is basically from like September to early April or so. Again, you can see them year round, but I would recommend that timing. And something cool I wanted to point out too from my time in Minnesota last week is speaking of community guides in the last section, it's also nighttime adventuring, stargazing. It's kind of making these opportunities for entrepreneurs who are local to try something new, to offer something that really hasn't been done. An example here in this photo that was so much colder than it looks. It was so cold that night. I joined a tour with a local guide who's offering night vision stargazing. So you go out in the forest with these night vision goggles and you're looking at the stars and seeing the sky in a way that perhaps your normal eyes can't really see. And I thought it was so cool. This is offered now around in all seasons, but the goal is to try to get more people to participate in spring, fall, and winter. And I think it's just exciting that nighttime adventures could potentially help spread tourism out and could potentially help local entrepreneurs like this outfitter. And I will end with Phantom Ranch, which I know we have a couple people from Arizona on here, so you probably know all about this. But for quick reference, Phantom Ranch is the only lodging on the floor of the Grand Canyon, the World Wonder Grand Canyon, one of the prettiest places I've ever seen. And the the thing about Phantom Ranch is it is so hard to get a reservation. It is one of the hardest reservations to nab in the National Park Service of the US, as well as sometimes in the country. It can book up via lottery up to 13 months in advance. But as I found out during my trip, where I was super ready to just go and camp on the floor, I'd gotten a permit to camp on the canyon floor. Sometimes people cancel last minute. And so in December of last year, my husband and I lucked into a last minute reservation at Phantom Ranch because somebody canceled, which I like almost fell off my chair. I was so excited. And then I booked it after I fell off my chair. And it was such an incredible way to experience a place. I had been several times before. My mom actually worked at the Grand Canyon when she was a college student. So it was really fun to go back with her several times. But this time, where I got to go beneath the rim of the canyon and really see the rock and how grand, I know it sounds stupid, but how grand the Grand Canyon is, it's pretty mind-blowing. And what I found here too is that it's such a great way to see, I mean, first to see the Grand Canyon less crowded is going beneath the rim because it's the Grand Canyon has 5 million annual visitors, and they say the Park Service says only 1% goes beneath the rim. And of that 1%, I don't even know, but like this tiny fraction goes down to Phantom Ranch, which is basically, or I guess, they go up and down, but that's not recommended in one day, or they camp. But Phantom Ranch is just a couple of cabins and dormitories that where it itself isn't super luxury, but the luxury is being around some of the oldest rock in the Grand Canyon. Down there, the rock can date back over 1 billion years. So it's crazy to think about just the grandness of the Grand Canyon. How many times can I say grand in this section of the presentation? But one thing I found really awesome, and I had no idea to expect this. I mean, I knew that the skies would be dark because the Grand Canyon is a dark sky park. So I brought all my tripods and all my cameras, and my back was killing me for a long time because, to be clear, you lose and then gain 4,700 some feet of elevation over 7 miles. So that's that's a knee grinder. But what I thought was so cool was that down on the canyon floor at Phantom Ranch, they are so all in on the dark sky movement. And went stargazing the night before our trek into the canyon, which not sure if I'd recommend or not because I stayed up late and then had to rise early for a very hard hike, but stars over sleep, right? And stargazing on the rim of the Grand Canyon is beautiful, but you do have more people around. You might have headlights from cars. It's wonderful. But then the Phantom Ranch was just like, what? Because other than inside the cabins, which have, regular lights, all of the exterior lighting at Phantom Ranch is red. And as you guys know, red is so much better for our eyes than this bright white fluorescent light. And yes, it was incredible because I got to see the stars so vividly. I got to see the like Andromeda Galaxy and some of the Milky Way and shooting stars and all of that. But I think what was most important, and what I think you guys might find most important, is that this presented such an opportunity for people to learn about light pollution around the dinner table at Phantom Ranch because everyone eats family style. Um, I was around all these people who were just talking about, well, why are the lights red? What does that mean? What does that do? Oh, that's interesting. How cool. And it's so incredible to see that eureka when people get it, because I do think that for the most part, people want to do good. They want not just their travels to do good, but they want to help. It's just how do you help if you don't know? And that's where I think travel, especially, I'm so excited about the dark sky approved lodging. It presents such an opportunity to educate travelers who are already interested in this subject, who are already fascinated by what they can see under better light. And I just found it really inspiring around that table to see people get it and kind of leave once they got over that very, very high hurdle of climbing 4,700 feet out of the canyon. After they did that, going home with this understanding of what they potentially could do in their communities or even in their own home to protect the night sky. So I will end on that and kind of open it up now to questions, whether it's about the book, about my adventures, hopefully about some ideas about responsible travel. But yeah, Betty, Maya, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. That was a beautiful presentation. And I can't imagine all of the incredible stories that you have from all of your travels, but I'm getting to read about all of them in the book. So it looks like so many people were talking about ordering it, and we shared your website and all the different ways people can buy the book. So thank you for talking to us about your incredible stories and adventures in the night. I love noctourism. It's a really cool, I think it's a cool, there's like astrotourism or dark sky tourism, but no, it's just night sky tourism. It's getting us out at night. And I think that's really important. It's discovering the night, right? Which is what we're all trying to do here and promote. So thank you so much for what you do. And there are tons of questions from the audience. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start in order because I really love this question from Jenny. And her question is, what tips do you have for vulnerable dark sky chasers to stay safe when traveling alone? I feel like I spend 50% of my time outside trying to be hyper aware of my safety. I often feel like I have to bail too soon.
That's a great question because I feel that too. And I've been out so many times by myself at night, and I still, I don't know if you can see my eyes moving back and forth, but that's me. Like, I'm always so hyper aware. And I wish that I had more of a how to do it on your own and feel safer recommendation other than telling someone where you are, of course. Having your phone on and charged in case you need it. If you're going to somewhere without cell service, making sure you have a satellite phone, sat phone. Um, but then I also would, like I said before, recommend when you can to try to find a local guide who can help you or might be interested in joining you at night. And this I've done as a woman. I also really love traveling with female guides because I really feel safe and I feel like they get me. And
Mhm.
so sometimes I'll find a guide who leads day tours and just reach out and say, like that woman I was talking about in Greenland. I'll reach out and say, hey, would you be able to take me on XYZ night adventure? And often they'll do that. And so that has helped me just kind of relax and see the world at night in a more like a less scared way. But yeah, those would be my tips. And yeah, just always make sure someone knows where you are.
Yeah, I love that. And I would add just going during the day as well before you go at night is something that I like to do. So you know where the cliffs are as well. I'm gonna go a little bit out of order actually here because I really like this question from Jesse, who asks, how do we know that the money brought in from noctourism will be distributed throughout the local community rather than a few wealthy individuals or companies?
Yeah, and this whole I forget the name of it, but basically the money seeping out of the local ecosystem, the local community, that's a huge problem in travel. And so the way I do it, and there could be other ways, I'd be open to other people's ideas, but I always try to just book directly with a guide. I reach out to them directly on their website. I find them just, by Googling local guide XYZ place or Viator. Travel with Locals is another website. I think the more you kind of take out the middleman who might be, a foreign person taking that money, that can really help. And a lot of places in recent years have been prioritizing a lot of like destinations and tourism boards have been promoting this community-based tourism supporting indigenous communities. And so often they'll have guides on, outfitters that are native owned or outfitters that are community owned. So I think and I also imagine you could work with a travel agent and say, I need any place that I'm traveling with to be community owned, and they could help with that too. I think it's really just taking that extra step, finding the right local guides, just making sure that they're owned by the community, or a community member owns the outfitter or the hotel or whatever. That has really helped. And then a lot of, I would say, travel magazines, Afar is really good about this. They will focus a lot of their travel coverage on local community owned outfitters, local community owned hotels. So it's a little more research for sure, but I do think that it's a really great step. And I'm happy that you guys are interested in doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. That was a great question. And thanks so much for your thoughts about that, Stephanie. It's a really important aspect to travel and noctourism that I think is great to be addressed here. So thank you both for that. Vanessa asks, any suggestions for taking photos of the night sky? What settings are best?
I'm gonna direct that to Betty Maya because you are my photography idol. I love all of your astro shots, so I'll let you take that one over.
Oh, well, you do so there's so many different kinds of astrophotography, right? And your settings for aurora are going to be way different than my settings for Milky Way in the dark desert. So yeah, that's a really hard question to answer. I feel like I always start with like ISO 1600. Start with 15 to 20 seconds and open your aperture as wide as it can go, so the smallest number. And then you can look at your histogram, you can look at what comes back on your LCD screen and adjust from there. But it's kind of good to know like ballpark where to start. But yeah, it totally changes through different conditions, and depends on your camera too. If you have a newer camera, like I shoot at ISO 6400 a lot, but on my first camera, like that I got, I couldn't go over 1600 because it would be too noisy. So definitely depends. But yeah, when what do you shoot for Aurora? It's like a second, one
And I
second.
just got a note that said, don't use Viator to keep money local. So that's a good, I just want to make sure that that's pointed out.
Mhm.
Thank you for calling that out. I usually try to find my community guides through that and then reach out to them through their website. So that's a good note. Thank you for calling that out, AstroTours. Um, for Aurora, I will say just one thing to add is that the Aurora is so dynamic. So typically I could go anywhere from like a 10-second shutter to 1 second. So I think it really depends on watching and just being able to maneuver. And I always recommend, if you can, to and if you can afford it, to rent two cameras, because I always like to have one just going for time lapse and then one where I'm experimenting and playing around with different settings to kind of see what's happening, because Lady Aurora can just travel super fast.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really cool to see her down here in Tucson twice in the last year, which was wild. But yeah, and also Vanessa, like use a cell phone. Nowadays, like cell phones are so good at taking photos of the Milky Way or the night sky. It's awesome. So really cool. Use what you have. If you don't have a fancy camera, the best camera is what you have. So just get started. And yeah, happy to chat more. I love talking about astrophotography. So I like this question from Andy. He asks, what night vision goggles work best for star viewing?
Um, I was just the participant in in that tour, so that was my first time ever experiencing it. So I'm not an expert on this, but please, I'll put my email in the chat if I can get in there. Email me after, because I would love to connect you with my guide from this trip, because they would have a much better answer, and I don't want to just make something up to make something up. So uh,
Yeah.
I'll connect you. Uh, I can't remember the name of the guide, but anyways, yeah, message me after, email me, and I'll send you their way, because they had all of these names for all of these goggles I was putting on, and it was so cold I couldn't remember anything.
Brain was frozen. I looked through night vision goggles once at the McDonald Observatory with Stephen Hummel, who's an astrophotographer down there. And it was so cool. But he said he had to like go through a whole background check and like get on like a government like list because like if you're a lot of these night vision goggles are like military grade, like used for tactical gear and stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure. It seems like people were chatting about night vision stuff in the chat. So pop in any recommendations y'all have because I would love to have some. I didn't know like there was a deer like 30 feet away from me that I couldn't see that I could only see with night vision goggles. And it was really cool. Well, it was a monocle. I had a monocle. Did you have goggles?
They have monocles and they have goggles, but I was traveling, yeah, we were hiking with the monocles, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I only did the monocle, which is cool.
it's also cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Okay, another good question. Sorry, I'm not doing these in order. I said I was going to, and I'm not. But Jesse has the good questions today. Thank you, Jesse. Have any of these areas that you have traveled to expressed interest in gaining their official international dark sky designation?
Yes, one great example was in the Cerrado. I'm gonna Cerrado of Brazil. I was there in March, April, it doesn't matter. But they said that they were starting the application or were starting to look at the application for becoming a dark sky destination. And I'm not sure which certification they would be going for, but I know they were really excited, and the one person I was talking to about this was super excited about this opportunity. So, yeah, that was one relatively recently that expressed interest. And I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting because I think a lot of places, once they hear about it, they're like, wait, we could do that. So
Mhm.
that's, I do try to talk about that a lot when I'm traveling, just about the Dark Sky Association and especially now with Dark Sky Lodging too. Gosh, I'm spreading the word about that as much as I can.
Yeah, thank you. We have a lot of questions kind of about Phantom Ranch. People are excited about it, but they're confused. How do you get there? Do you have to hike? If you have a relative who can't hike, is there a way to get people access to it? Are there mules? Like, what is this mythical Phantom Ranch and how do you get there?
I yes, so those are a lot of questions, so let me don't know if I don't answer any of them. But you can get there by mule, which is great. When I went, they were doing work. So there's two trails to get down to Phantom Ranch, maybe more, two main ones. And there's the South Kaibab, which I took, and that's a little bit steeper, I believe. And then there's the Bright Angel, which has mules sometimes. So I love that because not everyone can just completely grind their knees to the bone. I should probably stop. And that's what the South Kaibab Trail experience is. But if you go by mule down, you can get there without having to do that whole hike, and you can even send your pack down. So it's open. I think the Bright Angel Trail reopened, so both of those are options to get down there. And then you can also go from the North Rim, but I think that requires hiking too. And what was the other question?
Just like, is there a way to get there if you, yeah, like if you can't hike at all, like,
And then, yeah, I would say too, if you want information also on other ways to get in if you don't get lucky in the lottery, I wrote a big guide to for Outside Magazine about how to everything to know about the lottery system. When is the cutoff deadline for people to cancel their reservations to get money back, which I think is 45 days out. And I remember this guy I was sitting next to at dinner said that he's been able to get into Phantom Ranch like 20 times because as he like looks at the 45-day mark to see if the time he wants to go might have availability because that's when a lot of people cancel. So, anyways, I wrote a ton about this for Outside Magazine. It's on their website. Just search Outside Magazine Phantom Ranch, Stephanie Vermillion, and you'll find all of my tips, different tour operators that take travelers down there, which is a great way to guarantee you'll get in. Of course, it costs a little bit more money, but yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of finagle the system in your favor, and it's definitely worth it. And camping down there is something I was about to do before we got that last minute reservation. And we walked by the campsites and it's beautiful. So it doesn't always have to be the ranch.
nice. Well, thank you so much for that. And there are a lot more questions, but we just have one more minute. So I think what's important is, people are asking, can you help us in Dayton? Like, advocate for dark skies. Your work is so influential. I know people have a lot of questions. Is there a way people can get a hold of you? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to continue reaching out, or learning more about your book or the other work that you do?
Okay, I'm gonna put my email in here again because yeah, I love this community. I love Dark Sky Association, and I just
Love
want
you.
everyone, I want to answer everyone's questions. And if I don't have the best answer, I will find someone who does, because I, can only have expertise in so many things. But yeah, please reach out to me on my social media, on my Instagram. All of the things, and I would love to answer. And I have probably like 20 little stickers. I don't have an example, but they're not geo branded stickers of my for that you can attach to the inside of your book that I've been signing and sending to people within the US. So if that's of interest, please message me on Instagram or email me, and I'll see if I can make that happen too, because I just am so grateful to be here and really appreciate you all being here.
Oh, thank you. We're so grateful to have you. Keep your eyes peeled for the Nightscape magazine drop as well for more with Stephanie. And thank you for joining us. We know December is a crazy time with holidays and everyone. And thank you to all of our Dark Sky supporters here today that have tuned in. We couldn't protect the night skies without all of you. So thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for your courage to stand up against light pollution. And with that, I will close the meeting. And again, a huge gratitude to Stephanie for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you all. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye, everybody. Thank you.